They spent a week breaking her spirit, but forgot humans don't play by galactic rules. The detention chamber aboard the Hegemon Fortress ship Vigilance reeked of ozone, burnt flesh, and recycled failure. Princess Azora of Aquilon hung in the center of the cell, suspended by energy shackles that pulled her arms outward in a mockery of dignity. Her once lustrous cyan skin had dulled to a sickly gray blue, mottled with bruises that pulsed with every heartbeat. Strands of her bioluminescent hair hung limp across her hollow face, flickering weakly with the last vestiges of vitality. 7 days. That's how long she'd been here. Stripped of her royal garments. Stripped of her name. But not of her will. The Hegemon's interrogators worked in shifts, like surgeons dismantling a living system one nerve at a time. They started with electric lashes calibrated to scramble her spinal signals. When that failed, they moved on to psychotropic suggestion, then temperature extremes, then sensory deprivation. But Azora never screamed. Not once. A metallic hiss announced the arrival of her most consistent visitor. Commander Draith entered the chamber, his silhouette outlined by the stark light of the corridor behind him. His obsidian armor seemed to drink in the ambient glow, rendering him a walking shadow. Only his visor burned red, like an ever-watching predator. "Well," he drawled, voice smooth as poisoned silk. Still defiant. "I'll admit, Princess, I didn't expect royalty to be this resilient." Azora didn't reply. Her throat was too raw to waste words. Draith stepped closer, removing a sleek baton from his belt. The neural disruptor crackled to life, blue arcs crawling across its surface like hungry lightning. "Your silence," he said, tilting his head, "is almost admirable. But it's also predictable. You're clinging to the idea that someone, anyone, is coming. Let me clarify something." He raised the baton and gently tapped it against her ribcage. "No one is coming." Azora hissed through her teeth. Her body betrayed her with a twitch, but her eyes still burned. "You think pain is the enemy?" she rasped. Draith paused, surprised. "I've lived with pain since birth. I am heir to a world of oceans deep enough to crush warships. You think this breaks me?" Her lips cracked into something halfway between a smile and a snarl. "I drown in silence every day. And I surface." Draith's visor tilted, studying her. Then he struck. The disruptor screamed against her skin, sending 1,000 volts of agony down her spine. Her body seized. Her breath caught. Her vision widened out. But still no scream. When the current stopped, her body sagged once more in the restraints. But the fire in her eyes hadn't dimmed. Draith stared at her, unsettled now. He turned, cloak whispering behind him as he left the room. The door hissed closed. In the silence, Azora closed her eyes and smiled. Let them think she was near her end. Let them believe the trap had worked. The silence didn't last long. First came the tremor, barely perceptible through the ship's reinforced hull. Then the warning klaxons began, low and irregular at first, before erupting into a full-scale alarm. "Internal breach detected, Deck 17. Azora's head jerked up, confusion flickering behind exhaustion. For the first time in days, something had interrupted the grim rhythm of her torment. The chamber lights dimmed, then pulsed crimson. Emergency protocol. Then boom. The far wall imploded in a burst of white flame and twisted metal. Shards of alloy sang through the air. One sliced the neural baton from Draith's hand. Another embedded itself in the ceiling with a shriek. Smoke flooded the room. Draith stumbled backward, drawing his sidearm, but even his elite training couldn't prepare him for the figure that emerged from the chaos. Broad-shouldered, armored in matte black and cobalt plates scorched from past battles. No insignia, no ID, just raw presence. A human. He moved like a storm bottled into flesh. One fluid motion, and his incinerator rifle belched fire. 2 guards went down, their bodies crumpling like paper in the wind. Draith fired. Missed. The human rolled low, flanked right, and shot the weapon from Draith's hand with surgical precision. Azora blinked. Not from the smoke, but from shock. The man turned to her. Up close, his face was scarred and sharp-edged. Reddish stubble dusted his jawline. His eyes, intense, amber-hued, locked onto hers with a recognition that made her chest ache. "Princess Azora," he said, voice rough and low. "You look like hell." Her throat cracked. "Who?" "Name's Mads Rowan," he said, already tapping a device against her restraints. "Friends call me Rogue." The shackles hissed open. Her legs buckled, but before she could hit the floor, his arms caught her. "You're human," she breathed. "Guilty," he grinned. "Let's get the hell out of here." Behind them, Draith recovered, shouting something into his comlink. Mads turned, shielding Azora with his body. His rifle barked. Draith's shoulder snapped back as plasma tore through armor. "You're dead, human," Draith screamed. "Both of you." Mads didn't even look back. "Probably. But not today." He cradled Azora like a soldier retrieving the most sacred relic in a war zone. Her limbs were lead. Her head fell against his shoulder. "Still," she whispered. 30,000 troops, you're one man." His voice in her ear was calm, confident. "I've done more with less." He carried her into the fire and smoke. Behind them, the alarms howled, and Draith screamed in fury. Ahead of them, the Phantom waited. And freedom, if they could survive the next 15 minutes. Red strobes painted the walls like arterial flashes. Sirens wailed across every corridor as Mads sprinted through the belly of the fortress shipyard, Azora in his arms. Behind them, boots thundered. Orders barked in harsh, metallic tongues. The hegemon knew someone had breached the dungeon. They just didn't know yet they were already losing. "Left junction auxiliary shaft," Azora rasped. He glanced at her, surprised. "Still giving orders, princess?" "I know the ship's layout. They captured my admiralty too." "Good." He adjusted his grip on her. "Because I've only got 15 minutes to blow this place to hell." She blinked. "You what?" Mads ducked beneath a low beam as plasma bolts scorched the air behind them. A door slammed open ahead, 2 armored guards. He didn't slow down. One shot to the knee, one to the visor. Clean, controlled, brutal. "They turned your planet into a prison," he said. "So I returned the favor. Reactors rigged. Automated override loop. No one's stopping it now. You're insane. Welcome to humanity." He turned into a side corridor, his boots clanging against the steel floor. Emergency lights blinked with increasing urgency. Reactor core critical. 1342 remaining. They reached a stairwell. He set her down gently, checking her for wounds again. Azora pushed his hands away. "I'm not made of glass." He smirked. "No, just royal-grade stubbornness." She leaned against the railing, catching her breath. "Why are you doing this?" "What? You don't know me. You came into a hegemon fortress alone. You're detonating their core. That's not rescue. That's suicide." He looked at her, not with bravado, not with pride, with honesty. "They tortured my brother to death 2 years ago. For speaking out. I was too slow to stop it. I'm not making that mistake twice." Azora's mouth opened, then closed. She studied him, this reckless, raw, infuriating man who had no uniform, no banner, and yet made the galaxy tremble. "Finally," she said, "my people will sing of you. If we live." He chuckled, checking his rifle. "Just spell my name right." Blaster fire echoed up the stairwell. Mads pulled her behind a column, firing downward, more troops in black. "They're delaying us," she realized. "They're trying to pin us in here. Which means they haven't figured out which hangar I came through. Yet." He pulled a smoke grenade from his belt, kissed the side dramatically, and tossed it down. The stairwell exploded into chaos. "Can you walk?" Azora straightened. "Try and stop me. Then let's make them remember what it means to fight something unpredictable." The blast doors to Hangar 12 creaked open, revealing a hellstorm waiting on the other side. Azora and Mads froze at the threshold. Beyond lay the Phantom, a sleek black Corvette with scarred hull plating and folded wings like a sleeping predator. The only thing between them and the ship? 8 heavily armed hegemon enforcers. "Standard perimeter," Mads muttered, scanning their formation. 2 with heavy repeaters. For suppressors. 2 with close-range plasma scatterguns. Azora's eyes narrowed. "Weak on the flanks." He shot her a glance. "Can you handle the left side?" She didn't answer, just extended her hand. Mads grinned and passed her a compact sidearm. "Hatch code is 7734. Get to the ramp. I'll cover center. Try not to die, human. No promises." He rolled forward, firing controlled bursts. 2 guards dropped before they could react. Alarms screamed louder. Red lights strobed across the steel deck. Return fire came fast, a wave of blue energy bolts scorching the air. Azora sprinted along the left wall, feet light despite exhaustion. Her body screamed, but her training answered. She dove behind a crate and fired. One shot, helmet breach. Second shot, knee joint collapse. Third, through the rifle stock of a reloader mid-aim. She moved like liquid fury. Mads barked a laugh from cover. I'm officially terrified of you. Good, she called. Now move. He surged forward, a blur of motion, cutting down a guard who'd tried to flank her. A plasma bolt clipped his shoulder. He winced, but didn't slow. Azora was already halfway up the ramp to the Phantom when the bay's inner doors screamed. Doors are closing, she yelled. We've got seconds. A loud clang behind her. A Hegemon trooper leveled a missile launcher. Her breath caught. Mads. He turned, saw the red targeting beam too late. The trooper fired. Mads dove, tackling the man just as the warhead launched. It arced wide, slammed into a support strut, and detonated. The explosion shook the entire hangar. Azora threw herself flat as heat and pressure roared past. Flames and debris rained down. Through the smoke, she saw him cut, bleeding, but running. She reached the hatch, punched in the code 7-7-3-4, and the ramp groaned open. Move, she shouted. He bounded up the ramp just as another bolt flew past his head. He slapped the hatch control. It slammed shut behind them. Inside, red backup lights blinked. Systems dormant. Azora didn't wait. She lunged into the cockpit. Startup sequence? Right of pilot seat. Big scary panel. Her fingers flew. The Phantom coughed, sputtered, then roared to life. The deck shuddered as engines warmed. Mads slid into the pilot seat beside her, hands already on the yoke. Shields at 60%. Thrusters ready. They're sealing the hangar gates. Let's make our own exit. He fired 2 missiles at the upper hinges. Explosions rocked the bay. Steel bent. A narrow gap yawned open just as the Phantom lifted off. They surged forward. The gate slammed shut behind them, but not before they slipped through. Straight into the stars. The Phantom screamed through the vacuum, engines blazing, cutting a trail of ionized fury behind it. The vast frame of the Hegemon fortress shrank in the rear display, but not fast enough. 3 interceptors burst from a secondary hangar, arrowhead-shaped predators built for pursuit. Their hulls glinted with fresh armor, their engines hot with vengeance. They're locking on, Azora said, fingers flying over the console. Triangulated vector. They'll have firing range in 30 seconds. Perfect, Mads muttered, adjusting the yoke. Let them come. Azora glanced at him. You really enjoy this, don't you? It's the only part of war that makes sense, fly or die. The first plasma salvo screamed past their starboard wing. The Phantom shook violently, warning lights flickering across the dashboard. They're faster than us, she growled. True, but they don't know this sector like I do. He punched the throttle and veered hard toward a dense asteroid field ahead. Jagged rocks the size of fortresses drifted through space like silent titans, each spinning with unpredictable momentum. Wait, are you seriously? Yup. He dove into the chaos. The Phantom weaved through tumbling debris, scraping past rock and metal with only meters to spare. Behind them, the interceptors hesitated, then followed. Azora gritted her teeth. We're going to die in here. Not if you return fire. Rear gun console's yours. She swung around to the secondary controls, activated targeting. Her hands moved fast, instinct, memory, training. One interceptor came in tight, its plasma cannons glowing. Lining up for kill shot, she said. Then give him one first. Azora exhaled. Squeezed the trigger. Twin barrels beneath the Phantom's hull blazed with energy. The first shot clipped the enemy's shield. The second blew through it. The ship shuddered, veered, then slammed into an asteroid. A silent flash of light burst in the distance, followed by tumbling wreckage. One down, Mads said. Not bad, princess. Don't call me that while we're doing combat rolls. Fair. A second interceptor broke formation and looped overhead, trying to flank. Missile lock. Azora shouted. Decoys launched, Mads barked, ejecting 2 chaff pots. The missiles followed, exploded harmlessly in a white-blue flare. The remaining ships split, one harassing from the side, the other trailing high. They were smart, adjusting tactics. But Mads flew dirtier. He pulled into a corkscrew maneuver, spun the Phantom between 2 massive rotating boulders, then reverse thrust, sending them momentarily backward. Are we? "We're facing them," he confirmed. Azora took the shot. Twin beams lanced through space, catching one interceptor clean across the cockpit. It burst in a blossom of shrapnel and fire. The last one peeled off. "Smart pilot," Mads muttered. They cleared the asteroid field, stars opening before them like a silent welcome. Azora leaned back, breath shaky. "Not bad for a death trap," she said. "Not bad for a princess," he answered, smirking. The Phantom floated dead silent in a dark pocket of space, an abandoned drift corridor where light didn't dare reach. No signals, no heat, just the cold hush of nothing between stars. Azora sat in the co-pilot chair, her breathing shallow, eyes half-lidded. Sweat glistened on her temples, and a jagged burn crawled up her side, just below the ribs. Mads set down the medkit beside her and knelt. "Hold still. I've had worse." "Yeah." He gave a faint smile as he unsealed her damaged tunic. "Let me guess. Sharkblade duel on the ocean floor." Her mouth twitched. "No. Ceremony of the 8 trials. They release a current that shocks your system. If your heart stops, you fail. That's one way to sort leadership." He gently pressed a gauze pad soaked in antiseptic to her skin. She winced. "Sorry," he said quietly. "Don't be." The air between them thickened. Tense. Not hostile, just charged. His fingers moved carefully over her ribs, wrapping a micro-bandage that shimmered as it sealed the wound. "Fracture's clean," he murmured. "No organ damage. Lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You threw me out of the blast radius." He shrugged. "Reflex. You say that like it doesn't matter." "It matters," he said. Then looked up, and she was already watching him. Their faces were close. The hum of the ship's life support was the only sound. Her breath caught, just slightly. His hand paused on her side. Skin against skin, the heat between them subtle but undeniable. Azora tilted her head. "You're not like the others." "Which others?" "Humans they taught us to fear. Arrogant, reckless, loud. You don't talk much." "Maybe I'm listening." "To what?" He glanced at her hand resting on his wrist. "To this." They stayed like that for a moment, longer than either admitted. Azora's voice softened. "You risked everything to save me. That's not strategy. That's stupid," he offered, lips curling slightly. "No," she shook her head. "That's human." Mads stood slowly, tension coiling back into his frame. "We've got maybe an hour before they track our trajectory. I know a place." She didn't move. Just let the moment hang there, like the breath before a kiss. Then she nodded, voice calm. "Show me." He turned to the cockpit and dimmed the internal lights. The stars outside shimmered in silence, cold and bright and infinite. Behind him, she traced her fingers over the bandage he'd placed. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't anymore. It was the first time in days she felt something other than pain. It was the first time she didn't feel alone. And that was more dangerous than any wound. The Phantom docked with a slow hiss against the pitted hull of the Vidian station, an old mining outpost repurposed into a shadow port for the forgotten, the hunted, and the dangerous. Azora stepped onto the graded walkway, posture straight despite the lingering ache beneath her ribs. Gone was the regal shimmer of her skin. A dermal scrub had dulled her glow, her facial ridges hidden beneath adaptable synthetic flesh. She wore a cloak, dark and ragged, hood pulled low. Beside her, Mads wore a technician's jacket and sported a subtle cybernetic mod that made him look half salvager, half smuggler. His gait had changed, less like a soldier, more like someone who belonged in grime. "We won't get a second chance at this," he muttered, scanning the corridor. "Play it cold." Azora smirked. "You taught me well, human." The station stank of recycled air, sweat, and ozone. Neon signs blinked in a dozen dialects. Drones hovered overhead, scanning without asking. They pushed through a crowded bazaar of parts dealers, body mod clinics, and food stalls until they reached a narrow door with a flickering eye symbol on it. Mads knocked twice, then once more. It slid open. Inside sat a man with augmetic fingers, eyes like twin moons, and a long scarf wrapped twice around his throat. "Cyrus." "Rowan," he said without looking up. "And the infamous fish princess. My condolences on the bounty." Azora stiffened. "What bounty?" Cyrus tossed a holopad onto the table. The image flickered, her face, barely recognizable, and Mads' mugshot next to it. A 10 million credit bounty each. Charges: treason, terrorism, destruction of hegemon property, incitement of rebellion. Well, Mads muttered, guess we made the news. Not just news, Cyrus said, leaning back. You become a narrative. The galaxy thinks you assassinated a diplomat and blew up a civilian shipyard. Azora's hands clenched. That was a prison. Cyrus nodded. Details. But details get lost when money enters the conversation. Every bounty hunter, cartel informant, and rogue AI within 3 systems is about to start looking. What about safe passage? Mads asked. You'll get it, Cyrus replied, pushing a data chip across the table. New IDs, full registry overwrite. One-time route through the Orvan shadows. Azora picked it up. What's the price? Information, he said. About what you're planning. Because I've seen heroes fall. If you're going to light a fire, I want to know where the flames are headed. She hesitated, then looked at Mads. He nodded. She turned back to Cyrus. Her voice was low, but it cut through the hum of the station like a blade. We're not running. We're going to cripple their fleet. We're going to make the hegemon bleed. Cyrus smiled slowly, like a man who had just bet on the right underdog. Then let's give them a reason to double the bounty. Cyrus dimmed the lights with a wave of his augmented hand. The room darkened, and the table between them lit up, projecting a 3D map of the sector. Dozens of Crimson Hegemon fleet markers swarmed like hornets around a central icon, Aquilon. Azora inhaled sharply. The image wasn't just a threat. It was a sentence. They're massing for a full siege, Cyrus said. The Dominion fleet. No diplomatic cover. No trade routes. Just a coordinated blackout of every system feeding your homeworld. She leaned over the display, her fingers trembling. That's a declaration of annihilation. They won't say it, he replied. But yes, this is an occupation. It's extinction. Mads stepped closer, arms crossed. That many ships. They don't just appear overnight. Cyrus nodded. The build-up was quiet, spread across multiple sectors. No one noticed until it was too late. The map zoomed in. At its heart floated the flagship, the Dominion. 8 kilometers of armored command protocols. A ship so large it had its own climate control system. Drone factories, and auto-defense grid. Azora's voice hardened. That's the heart. Cyrus turned to her. And the brain. The Dominion's AI doesn't just control itself. It coordinates battle strategy across the fleet. One mind, thousands of vessels. You kill the ship, you blind the war. Silence. Then Mads said, you want us to take down the Dominion. Cyrus met his gaze. I want to give you the chance to take it down. The path is narrow, but it exists. He flicked a hand again. Another icon lit up. A neutral cargo hauler, slow and nondescript. Supply run. Civilian registry. It's within docking range of the Dominion every 3 days. Automated inspection. No heavy scans. You intercept, replace the crew, swap IDs, and ride in quiet. Mads exhaled. We get on board. Then what? Engineering bay. Upload a seed virus. It'll spread through the Dominion's internal systems and crash their coordination AI. Without it, their fleet turns into a confused mess of captains arguing for control. Azora shook her head slowly. It's suicide. Which is why you two are perfect for it. Mads grunted. Thanks for the vote of confidence. Cyrus leaned in, his voice low. This war has momentum. The kind that crushes everything soft. You're not soft. You're angry. You're reckless. And more than that, people are watching you. They saw the prison burn. They saw the Phantom escape. They're waiting to believe. He tapped the table. The map flickered. Azora stared at the spinning red form of the Dominion. Her planet glowed just behind it, fragile and blue. Finally, she whispered, give us the access codes. Cyrus smiled. And the war changed shape. The transport ship Duskline drifted toward the Dominion like a moth toward a hungry flame. Inside its cargo bay, Azora adjusted the stiff collar of her logistics uniform. It scratched at her neck, a far cry from the ceremonial silk of her palace days. Her skin had been altered again, pigmentation muted to a pale beige tone, ridges concealed under a layer of reactive biogel. Even her eyes were dull gray now, the fire buried beneath a foreign face. Across from her, Madge checked his reflection in a dark screen. His hair was now darker, cropped military short. His usual smirk was gone, replaced by the blank expression of an overworked supply officer. A synthetic ocular patch glowed faintly over his left eye, mapping every movement around them. You look awful, she said. Perfect, he replied. Means I blend in. They exchanged no smiles this time. The plan was simple. Get on board during the cargo check-in, pass inspection, reach engineering deck 6, and upload the virus. Simple. Except it wasn't. Because nothing about walking into the beating heart of the hegemon was ever simple. Approaching docking vector, the Duskline's autopilot announced. Outside, the Dominion loomed into view, a monolithic black prism, bristling with antennae and weapon ports. Lights pulsed along its surface like a slumbering beast counting breaths. Azora swallowed hard. We're just two deckhands delivering plasma cores. Mads nodded, checking his ID badge. Try not to act like royalty. Try not to act like a saboteur. The docking clamps hissed. The outer bay doors opened, and the game began. Inside, the Dominion was a world unto itself, sterile corridors lined with uniformed personnel, wall displays in 4 languages, drone clusters sweeping every intersection. Cameras watched everything. People watched more. Mads and Azora rolled their cargo crate between them. Inside it, a disassembled data spike containing the virus. Keep your pace even, he muttered. I know how to walk like a subordinate. Could have fooled me the first 5 days we met. A pair of officers passed them, barely sparing a glance. One yawned. The other barked at a maintenance drone for blocking a passage. Security's thinner than expected, she whispered. That's what worries me. They reached the main elevator hub. A retinal scan. Mads leaned into the reader. The forged contact lens fed it a valid signature. A green light blinked. The doors opened. They stepped inside. Just as another officer approached the console. Hold that. Mads hit the button. The doors closed. Azora exhaled. Too close. Yeah. The lift began to rise, Deck 2. 3, 4. Their target, Deck 6, Engineering Core. Azora gripped the side of the crate. Once we upload, we won't be able to hide. I know. Their eyes met for a brief second. No words. Deck 6 opened into a low-lit junction filled with humming power conduits, crate stacks, and personnel in drab uniforms hustling from terminal to terminal. The engineering core sat just beyond 2 security doors and a biometric lock away. Azora and Mads moved with precision, guiding their cargo crate to the checkpoint. A single officer sat at a desk, flanked by 2 armed guards. Tall, broad, eyes like flint. Rank insignia, sub-commander. He looked up lazily as they approached. Manifest, he barked. Mads stepped forward, keeping his expression flat. Routine core exchange, clearance path J76, override P-class from Arcadium node. The sub-commander didn't blink, just stared, then slowly stood and walked around the crate. Azora's fingers curled into fists behind her back. Turner and Vess, the man read from the forged IDs. Haven't seen either of you on this deck before. We were reassigned this cycle, Mads replied, voice neutral. The man tilted his head, then reached for a portable scanner. Standard security sweep, he said casually, but his tone had sharpened. He ran the device along the crate. It beeped. Too long. Mads's heart thumped once hard. Azora felt it too. Her breath caught. The sub-commander frowned. Odd signature. You packed this yourself? Mads didn't move. Loaded from secondary vault. Might be residual ion field from a recycled casing. The officer's eyes flicked between them, then settled on Azora. You. Where are you from? Azora's mouth went dry. Delta loading ring, junction 4. The man stared at her face. Too long. Too intently. Then he leaned in closer, narrowing his eyes. You wearing something? Azora froze. Her hand inched toward the ID badge. A bluff? A stun baton? Anything? The air seemed to thicken. Then the scanner beeped again. The officer straightened. Ion residue confirmed. Guess your vault team's still cutting corners. He waved a hand. Move along. Azora and Mads didn't look at each other as they pushed the crate past the checkpoint. The guards didn't follow. Not yet. They ducked into an auxiliary service tunnel, just outside the core doors. Azora leaned against the wall, her breath coming fast. Mads checked the scanner spike inside the crate. Still intact? That was too close, she hissed. He made us. Not fully. Yet. Silence. Then she said, Lo, what if we don't make it back? He glanced at her, jaw clenched. We will. No, she said. What if you don't? What happens if you die in there? I've already made peace with that. Well, I haven't. That stopped him. Their eyes locked. The hum of power conduits echoed around them. You think this is a noble death, she said. But if we fail, my people die. All of them. And if you fall here, no one tells their story. He softened, just slightly. You think I don't know that? I don't know what you know, she whispered. And I don't know how much time I have to find out. He touched her hand, just briefly. Then let's make this mission count. Here's Breach, the heart of the ship, minus 500 words of intensity, sacrifice, and unrelenting purpose. Breach, the heart of the ship. You don't just attack a machine dot. You fight its logic. And then you bleed for it. The doors to the Dominion's AI core hissed open with a chime that sounded almost reverent. Inside, the chamber pulsed with cold light, silver floors, arcing power conduits, and a central spire surrounded by a transparent cylinder. Inside the cylinder, a crystalline structure floating mid-air, illuminated by constant data streams, a living brain made of code and crystal. Azora paused at the threshold. This thing doesn't just think, she murmured. It remembers. Mads locked the door behind them, drawing a pulse detonator and locking it to the panel. Good. Let's make sure it forgets everything. They approached the console. It rose like a podium from the floor, interface glowing and waiting. Mads pulled the virus core from the crate, an ugly, jagged spike of carbon and code, and inserted it into the primary slot. The system resisted immediately. Lights flickered. The air grew thick with heat. The floor vibrated under their feet. System is rejecting the upload, Azora said. It's adaptive. Of course it is, Mads muttered, working faster. This is no archive. It's a command nexus. Give me 60 seconds. The lights shifted to red. A mechanical voice echoed from the walls. Unauthorized breach detected. Purge sequence initiated. Azora drew her blaster, instincts flaring. Then, explosions outside. The door behind them blew inward. Guards stormed through, shouting. Mads didn't move from the console. I need more time. Azora stepped forward. 2 shots. A trooper collapsed. She pivoted, dropped to one knee, and fired again clean, rapid, lethal. But the enemy kept coming. A bolt clipped her shoulder, spinning her sideways. She hit the floor hard, teeth gritted against the pain. Azora, Mads shouted. I'm fine, she gasped, crawling behind a column. Finish it. Blood soaked through her uniform. Her blaster trembled in her grip. Another bolt skimmed the wall above her head. Mads slammed a hand on the console. Come on, eh. The virus struck gold. The central crystal cracked. Data streams turned erratic, sputtering. Then they froze. The humming stopped. And all at once, the Dominion paused. Outside the core, the ship's artificial gravity flickered. Lights dimmed. Drones froze mid-flight. Across the galaxy, fleet ships linked to the Dominion's control systems began to drift, confused, disoriented, rudderless. Azora forced herself up, aiming with her offhand, blood dripping from her arm. The remaining guards hesitated, just long enough for Mads to toss a concussion grenade. Boom. The blast sent shrapnel and light across the chamber. Smoke swallowed everything. When it cleared, only 2 figures remained standing. Azora, wounded, swaying. Mads armored, breathing hard, staring at the shattered core. It's done, he said softly. She staggered to him, blood painting her side. No, you did it. He caught her before she collapsed. Across the Dominion, chaos unfolded like a ruptured artery. Bridge officers screamed into dead comms. Pilots floated weightless as gravity failed in mid-maneuver. Drones spiraled out of control, blinking error codes as their command pathways turned to static. Throughout the fleet, captains barked orders no one could hear. Ships drifted in formation like blind titans, colliding or fleeing, engines sputtering in the dark. The AI was dead, and the fleet no longer had a soul. Mads dragged Azora through the smoke-choked corridor, one arm wrapped tight around her waist, the other gripping a rifle slick with blood and coolant. Her legs stumbled beneath her, but her eyes were wide, aware, burning. The shuttle bay, how far? She gasped. 2 decks. 1 security wall. 1 miracle, he panted. Then, let's earn it. A support beam groaned above them, collapsing with a crash as they ducked into a side stairwell. Emergency lights flickered. Sirens wailed. Fire vented from torn conduits. Behind them, deep inside the Dominion, the ship's overloaded core pulsed, One beat too fast. Matt slammed the shuttle bay override panel with his fist. Open, damn it. The door hissed, slow, reluctant. Inside, a sleek, fast diplomatic runner. Emergency fuel. No tracking beacon. Perfect, he growled. He helped Azora into the co-pilot's seat. Her blood smeared across the controls. You'll need to fly, he said, buckling in beside her. She gritted her teeth. Thought you liked the stick. I like surviving more. The shuttle roared to life. Aft doors sealed. A warning blared across the dash. Ker failure. Evacuate immediately. Mads pushed the throttle forward. The ship blasted out of the bay as a shockwave rolled beneath them. Behind, the Dominion's reactor core detonated, not in a neat, calculated implosion, but in a brutal, messy firestorm that ripped through its spine. Decks folded inward. Sections tore free. Internal gravity collapsed. The explosion lit up the void. A crown of ruin blossomed in space, a jagged ring of light and dust and rage. Inside the shuttle, Azora watched the viewport, her chest rising and falling with shallow breaths. That's one less god playing war, she whispered. Mads looked over. Her face was pale, blood smeared across her temple, her lips cracked, but she was smiling. That slow, tired, impossible smile of someone who just shattered the world's biggest lie. You're bleeding out, he said. I'm laughing, she corrected, voice ragged. Can't tell the difference on your face. She reached over, fingers trembling, and touched his wrist. I told you we'd make them bleed. He didn't answer. He just stared at her hand on his. The phantom drifted through the shadow of a dead star, its core long collapsed, its light a memory erased from time. The system was silent, cold, forgotten by all but the desperate and the hunted. Inside the ship, the medbay hummed softly. Monitors blinked at irregular intervals. Tubes ran from infuser units into Azora's arm, pushing synth blood into her veins. Her skin was pale, flickering back to its natural cyan hue in waves. Mads sat beside her, focused on the wound along her ribs. He worked slowly, hands steady despite the ache in his own shoulder. The cauterizer hissed as he sealed the last rupture. I liked your hands better when they held a blaster, she murmured. They're multitaskers, he said without looking up. Azora chuckled, a small, cracked sound. She shifted slightly, winced, then turned her gaze to the viewport. Stars crawled past like distant ghosts. This quiet, she said. It reminds me of the deep currents back home. The places no swimmer dares go. No sound, just pressure. Wait. He glanced at her. Aquilon. She nodded. It's not just oceans. There were towers once. Floating cities tethered by biofilaments. Coral bridges between sky and sea. Now, most of them are gone. Mads wiped his hands on a cloth. Because of the hegemon? Because we believed talking would save us. While they sharpened weapons behind every treaty, silence stretched between them. Then, softly, she added, I watched my father give away the planetary codes, one by one. Not under torture. Out of desperation. He thought surrendering would buy us time. And it didn't. They took his head before the last syllable left his mouth. Mads swallowed. He didn't speak. Didn't offer comfort or platitudes. Just let the words settle like ash. She looked at him again. And this time she saw it. Not just empathy. Not just attention. Something else behind his eyes. Something softer. Deeper. He met her gaze. Didn't flinch. For a second, nothing existed but the space between them. Azora's hand reached out, slow, uncertain. Her fingers brushed the back of his. I don't know what comes next, she whispered. But I know I don't want to walk into it alone. You won't, he said. The Phantom's communications bay was small, shielded, and silent, designed for stealth rather than show. But in that moment, it became a throne room. Azora stood in shadow, her cloak draped over one shoulder, the deep blue fabric catching the faint light of the hollow interface. Her skin was still pale from blood loss, her movements deliberate, regal. Her crown was gone, but something in her eyes made her taller than any queen. Mads watched from the corridor. He didn't interrupt. She adjusted the frequency dial, her fingers tracing patterns she'd memorized as a child, encrypted broadcast layers only a scattered few would know how to find. One-time burst. No return channel. Target. Alliance remnants. Dissident enclaves. Unaffiliated vessels. She inhaled once. Then spoke. Calm. Clear. Unshakable. This is Azora of Aquilon. If you're hearing this, It means you still have ears to listen and a reason to live. You've seen the skies darken. You've seen the flags of the hegemon rise like storms. But you haven't seen the end. Because we're not finished. She stepped forward into a sliver of light. Her face still bore scars. Her voice still trembled at the edges, but it carried more than pain now. It carried fire. They locked me in a cell. They tried to break my body. My voice, my name. And they failed. Because a human broke their chains. Because he carried me through fire. Because he didn't care about bloodlines or flags, only about stopping tyranny. And he's not the only one. The camera blinked red. Live feed pulsing. We're not alone. Humanity fights with us. They bleed with us. They're not invaders. Not monsters. They're the variable the hegemon couldn't calculate. And now, they're the blade we strike with. She stepped closer to the mic. Her tone dropped, almost to a whisper, but the kind of whisper that lives forever. If you're afraid, so are we. If you've lost someone, we all have. But if you still believe a better world is possible, find us. Fight with us. She leaned in, and the final words came not like a speech, but like an oath. Aquilon still breathes. The tides have not fallen. And together, with humans at our side, we will rise. She cut the feed. Static hissed. Silence returned. Mads entered quietly. Broadcast clean. She nodded. If they're listening, they'll know we haven't drowned. He smiled slightly. They'll know something's coming. Something the hegemon can't smother. The cockpit of the Phantom was quiet. No alarms. No sirens. Just the soft hum of engines purring in low-power mode, drifting between constellations like whispers through a sleeping city. Azora sat in the pilot seat now, her cloak wrapped around her shoulders, hair dimmed to its natural ocean blue shimmer. Beside her, Mads leaned back, one boot propped on the console, eyes scanning the void beyond. Ahead, the stars glittered, not just as lights, but as destinations, as possibilities. Neither of them spoke for a long while. The weight of what they'd done still lingered, like smoke after a fire. Finally, Azora broke the silence. You think they heard me? Mads didn't look away from the stars. I think they'll remember you. She exhaled slowly, letting the last tension drain from her spine. Then she stood, stepping forward to the wide, transparent steel window, hands resting on the frame. A full galaxy sprawled before them, worlds unknown, allies yet unmet, dangers still to come. But she didn't feel afraid. She felt aligned, whole. She turned to Mads, and her voice was soft, but every word cut like sacred metal. We learned to survive in oceans. Now, we'll learn to win in space. Together with humans.